Right, so let's expand on that topic, right? Township Economic Commission President Mr. Bheki Twala joins us in studio, while on video link we are joined by Dr. Daniel Fikriyesis from Anga Association, an organization that represents foreign nationals, Spaza shops in the country. And we're also joined by Gauteng Economic Development Deputy Director General Raymond Martin, taking your calls on this issue as well. The importance of this registration process, and certainly do you think that it'll help in keeping our children safe where food safety is concerned? Send us a WhatsApp on 072 110 5584 or give us a call on 010 594 6010. Mr. Twala, we'll start with you because you are here in studio with us. Good evening and thank you so much for your time. It's been a few months now that we've been discussing this issue of the registration of Spaza shops. The deadline is here. Tomorrow, we're just hours away. Talk to me about your members. Are they registered, and how did you find the process of getting them there?
No, thank you very much, Naledi. Good evening to the viewers at home, and good evening to my fellow panelists. We're happy to be here. Yes, the deadline is tomorrow. We've engaged with the people to say, let's go and register Spaza shop. Because remember, we are now moving the Spaza shop industry from the informal to the formal, so that people are able to run Spaza shop properly. Now, yes, the majority of the people, they went and registered. Yes, some of them, they had some issues, because remember the documents that you need, to register a Spaza shop, it's a lengthy document. But what is important is that you've started the process. Because what is important is about starting the process. Unlike people sitting at home, and then waiting up until the deadline. Now, towards the deadline, and then a person come and say, hey, we need to extend. For example, unfortunately, the deadline will not be extended because we mean business when we say, let's register as Spaza shop. But remember, Naledi, it's very bad that we had to lose our kids to be where we are. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, we really need to take this very seriously. Tomorrow, I'm in Northern Cape. We're doing the Township Economy Expo where we'll be dealing with this Spaza shop issue. We've got a number of people that are running Spaza shop that will be in the room. We're now saying, after you've registered, what is the next step? You remember the issue of the 500 million from government to assist Spaza shop. Now we need then government to tell us what is the process of people accessing that. Remember, it's not about money, but it's all about government assisting you in terms of the regulations, the compliance, and making sure that we also assist our Spaza shop in terms of stock.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into some of the challenges because I think they're important. We know that some Spaza shops have complained about even the cost of this registration period, and you've talked about just how lengthy it is. But let's hear from our other panelists. Dr. Fikriyesis of the Anga Association. Foreign national Spaza shop owners in the country, how have you rated this process over the past few months of getting registered? Are all your members satisfied with the process?
Good evening, Naledi, the panelists, and your viewers at home. Since this program has been launched, our members have been doing their best because the goal is to maintain health and safety standards to ensure compliance, and that will also give us trust with our customers. We have been doing our best to realize the goal of this project. Since the extension that was in December, we have been diligently working with our members to maintain high sanitation standards, like doing cleaning and disinfecting the Spaza shops. We have been working on waste management procedures. We have been keeping the waste bins clean, and we have been working very well in food handling and storage mechanisms we have been working on. And we have had different meetings with various community members, teaching them on how the shops should be hygienic enough. So shopkeepers were taking different meetings. We have been explaining how this should be improved. And we have had lots of meetings, but if your question is how hard it was seriously hard. We are still trying our best. Even one of the concerns that we have been hearing is that people sleeping in the shops. That's obviously related to security concerns. However, we should not say that it's right to sleep in the room, so in the shop. So we have had an alternative solutions such as employing or the security measures such as getting security systems or alarm systems. And we have had the decision to have community policing so that we collaborate with local community instead of sleeping in the shop. However, the time and some other challenges had been so tough for us, but that's how we were since December.
Yeah, but this is what I want to get to, though, Dr. Fikri-Esses, is of your members. How many do you think, perhaps a percentage of those that you feel are fully registered ahead of the deadline tomorrow? And if that number isn't where you'd like it to be, why that is? So can you give me that data?
Yeah, thank you, Naledi, for this question. It's hard to get a figure by now because, the documents, I think the previous speaker has been saying it, the documents that we were required to submit were complex, such as zoning certificate, title deed registration certificate, certificate of occupancy, and the council letter. There were lots of challenges to get all these documents, along with the asylum seeker paper, which I have been saying repeatedly on this media and elsewhere. So all those things hindered the process. So even though the Department of Home Affairs have done a great job with the visa applications, still with us, with the asylum seeker, nothing has been done yet. But we believe that that's the next area of concern. And what happened right after the extension? It was the holiday season. It was Christmas in December 25th and New Year. People have to be with their family. People have to be traveling. So when our people or our members were going to those areas, including municipalities, it's obvious that people should be allowed to have vacations. So those have hindered the process and the influx of applications. There were lots of backlogs. People were applying from different areas. So those all backlogs had to be followed each one by one thoroughly by those municipality officers.
Okay, so let's bring in Raymond Martin. Of course, he's the Deputy Director General at the Department of Economic Development in Gauteng. Raymond, good evening to you. Thank you for your time. So you hear some of the concerns that have been raised by Mr. Twala and Dr. Fikri-Esses around the process. Mr. Twala saying that, well, in some cases, really, the time it takes for the registration being quite lengthy. And Dr. Fikri-Esses saying the documentation, complex. And then on the other hand, you've got delays in getting asylum seeker paperwork for some of their own members. Just from a bird's eye point of view at a province level, how you think this process really has gone, and do you agree with the Cogta Minister when he says there will be no more extensions?
Good evening, Naledi, and good evening to your viewers and to the panelists. Absolutely. Remember that the decision that even the minister speaks about is not a decision that you and I or even the minister has control over. It was a decision made by the president of this country that the 28th of February will be the deadline. And as such, we all have to comply with the deadline. So it's fait accompli that by the 28th, tomorrow, is the last day for anyone who seeks to register. As the minister has explained, one of the things that they can do, they can't trade, but obviously they can still continue to apply and meet all the requirements as set down in the documents that have been, the application documents that have been given to them.
They can't trade, but they can certainly continue to apply. And so on Monday, let's talk about Monday or the day after tomorrow, where you run into a Spaza shop that is trading and does not have that registration in place. What happens to that business?
Unfortunately, Naledi, they'll be closed down, and possibly the law enforcement agents will ensure that they arrest the person because they'll be violating an order given by the municipalities for them not to trade.
Sure. I mean, what do you say to that, Mr. Twala?
Yeah, that's what is going to happen. But also, another thing that I want to bring into the table, Naledi, is that the people that wants to start Spaza shop, let's say from Monday, that's when then you start the process. Then you complete the process before you can start trading. The message is clear to say, if your Spaza shop is not registered and you don't have any proof that you've applied, meaning you can't then trade up until you get the necessary documents. But at the end of the day, we need to respect our country's laws. But at the end of the day, we are in a point that we need to make sure that as businesses as well, we respect, the corporate laws of the country and follow those laws. I think it's critical. And then also our people from the businesses in the township, they've acknowledged that, they're embracing that, because at the end of the day, it also becomes difficult for them to operate if they are not compliant. For example, they can't even access support from government. They can't even access those funds because they are not compliant. Now, the best way, yes, we know and understand it's not easy to comply, but if you're a business person, it's one thing that you need to know, that if I start a business, these are the processes that I need to follow, and in order for me to operate professionally, these are the things that I need to do. But at the end of the day, it's not about you making money, it's also about you, providing a solution to the communities. Now, as running a Spaza shop, you're providing convenience. But convenience mustn't be a hindrance to the health of the communities and the consumers.
Yeah.
This is why we need to protect the consumers at the end of the day.
I'm going to ask a question to all three of our panelists in a moment. And I want to give you a second maybe to really think about it. Because how we got to this point as a country where we said Spaza shops need to register was coming out of children losing their lives as a result of what we were calling food poisoning or poisoned food that was being sold in some of these establishments. And it was in various parts of the country. We don't have a lot of those cases being reported at the moment, which is quite interesting what was done there that we brought the cases down. But how does the registration of Spaza shops actually fix that problem? I think that's an important question for us to really, really think about. Directly the registration of Spaza shops, what does that do for keeping our children alive? Especially now that we might be seeing businesses that are family businesses that have been running for decades, possibly facing jail time because they haven't registered. But we'll take your call, 0105946010. We've got Lewang in Cogta. Lewang, good evening. Thank you so much for calling. Ngiyaphila bhuti unjani?
Ngiphilile. Mina ngingazama ukuregister la eCogta. Mina ngatshela ukuthi ngeke ngikhone because ngine-container ngiyile phaka kwamasipala. Ngiyenze yonke i-effort yami. Yes, but ngahluleka-ke kanjalo because mina ngine-container. Akunawo amandla ukuthi ngiyakhe indlu leyo ngokuthola.
And how long has your business been running in this container, Putam?
It's 3 years now.
3 years. So if authorities come to you, Mr. Lewang, and say to you on Monday that you don't have a registration, and now you're hearing that you might very well face jail time, what do you think of that?
Because
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in. Mr. Lewang there speaking to us from Cogta, and listen to what he says. I have a container. My business has been operating out of a container for 3 years, and because of that, I was unable to register. And he's got children to feed, and this is a reality for so many people. Dr. Fikri says maybe you can answer that question. Your understanding of how the registration process helps food safety.
Yeah, we totally understand. That's why we have been doing all the things we did. However, the same point that our brother on the phone have been saying, for example, one of the documents that should be submitted is certificate of occupancy. This document, even on the website, it says that this takes like a couple of weeks to months because of 2 reasons. One is available to inspectors. When you do this registration, inspectors have to be everywhere. So do you think that inspectors can go everywhere? Did inspectors go to all the shops so that they finally say that this shop can't operate after Monday? What about all the documents, all the applications that have been submitted to the municipality? What about all the documents submitted to CIPC? Have those documents been given us back? Haven't all the issues that I have mentioned and more affected the registration? These people haven't refused to comply to the regulations. But imagine someone, a metropolis, taking you to a jail for not having a license when the office does not give you the license. Even though you go to the office to get the license, the office says that we're busy, we have these reasons, wait. And one day someone on the road took your license and they jailed you. So how would that work? This jailing works if the people refuse to comply, refuse to submit all the documents required. For example, there is one issue that panelists in this room should consider. There is disparity or standardization issue with this registration. For example, at most of the KZN, most of the offices or municipalities have given them or sent them a reference number and sent their documents to economic development, tourism, and environmental affairs. But this is not everywhere. Most of the municipalities have received the documents and have been saying them, wait. Now we are running out of time. We only have 2 days. Now we are being told that no one can operate after Monday. If this is the case, we wouldn't have been allowed all those 2 months from January to February, because the problem is not with us or with the members or with all the special.
Yeah, so Mr. Martin, there's a lot for you to answer, and I think Fikriyesis also brings about the point of, well, in some cases, municipalities simply not getting back to Spaza shop owners, even though documents have been submitted. So there is no reference number to show authorities that I am in the process of this. You can respond to that. But I also want to look at this issue that's been raised by our caller, Lewang, because such an important one. A Spaza shop that is running out of a container, so may very well not have certain documentation, title deeds, for instance. But it is a business that is feeding his family, that is feeding the community. He wants to register, but he can't. I mean, is there something that we've missed here?
Naledi, firstly, let me commend Mr. Twala. I think Mr. Twala's expression of or reflection of the reality on the ground is extremely on point, and you can of business owner that we'd like to have in our communities, who take some of these things quite seriously and speaks with conviction on how some of these things should be done, and not necessarily speaking as a by the way issue, as if you just have to allow certain things like it has been. Unfortunately, there's been a license friend. We must accept that in how some of these things have been done. And people have gotten used to doing things in their own way and not necessarily following the law as it was. So I can only say the municipalities will deal with applications, and they have been dealing with applications because there's been an instruction on them to ensure that they expedite the process of approving some of these applications. But as Mr. Twala may have indicated somewhere, I will raise some of the challenges that we've picked up, particularly even with what maybe the caller has said. Unfortunately, if he does not have the right documentations to run that business, he may not be granted approval to trade. That's unfortunate. And sometimes, depending on where the container may be placed, because in some cases, you know that many of them have put these structures, or even have built on some building lines. That too is a contravention, and they've encroached on some of these building lines, and as such can't be approved because of those dynamics that I've mentioned now. We've got a lot of those in some of the cases, and that is why many of them would not necessarily be approved, because for one, they don't have all the documentations. They've not completed the entire document as it is. Some, especially foreign nationals, submit fraudulent documents in some cases, and in some of them, we also have complaints maybe from some of our locals indicating that maybe the amounts of registering a business is slightly expensive. But again, I wanted to latch on to what Mr. Twala said. If you are a business person who wants to run a business, these are the type of things that you should prepare for, so that when you run a business, it's not just about profit, but it's to ensure that your business is compliant with all the laws governing the running of a Spaza shop.
I want to stay with you, Raymond, because there's this issue. I'm thinking about how this impacts the informal economy. So someone like a Lewani, for instance, is considers himself part of the informal economy, which is a big chunk of, our economic activity here in South Africa. And I'm going to speak from information that comes from the International Labour Organization, so not my data, saying that informal employment, so jobs coming from the informal sector, make up a third of total non-agricultural employment. So close to 5 million jobs in the country that are created by the informal sector. Are we squeezing that sector? Is that a concern at this point?
Absolutely. Naledi, there is no government that would want to ensure unemployment in the country. Absolutely not. Our primary focus is to ensure that we create the jobs as much as we possibly can. Ours is to ensure that we even license so that we can facilitate the creation of jobs. So that is essentially what all of this is all about. One of the things that we're also hoping to do is to bring those very same people in the informal sector into the formal sector so that they can run proper businesses and they can get the type of support that business has for people in those sectors. So it is our endeavor to ensure that we support them 100%, becoming formal and ensuring that they run their business properly.
Yeah. The informal sector is important, Mr. Twala. What's the recommendation here on how we start to see them move into a formalized sector quicker without needing now to be criminalized for trying to put food on the table, which is how many people could possibly view this?
Remember, Naledi, when you talk about township economy, you're talking about 40% informal and 60% formal. Yes, we are saying we are not saying we formalize all the informal economies, but what we then do, we can then professionalize the informal. But the Spaza shop that contributes 150 to 180 billion, it can't sit on the informal. It needs to come. Another thing that I want to bring, Naledi, also we need to make sure that some of the things we become ignorant about. We've talked about this registration of this Spaza shop. We're saying organizations like us are here to assist people who've got challenges. If you don't wake up, dress up, and show up as a business person and say, I need help, you can't be arrested if you've got a proof that says, I've done 1, 2, 3, I've moved my application, I'm now on 50% or on 40%. Then we can then say, okay, these are the things that you can't get. What are the reasons you are not getting this? And you'll be assisted. Yeah. It's not like we're now throwing you in the wilderness whereby now your business will be closed, you're not going to be operating and all that. But we need not to be ignorant. We need to make sure that at the end of the day, if you're a business person, go to the like-minded people, associate with people that are doing the same. You can't then say you alone, you're the only one that are not getting assisted in terms of getting application. Yeah. For me, I don't really buy that.
I imagine that we'll have this conversation in the next few weeks as we see those raids and inspections take place in various communities. Mr. Bheki Twala, thank you so much for your time. Of course, he's the president of the Township Economic Commission, Dr. Daniel Fekriesis, director of the Anga Association, and Raymond Martin, deputy director general at the Gauteng Department of Economic Development. We've been taking your WhatsApps as well on this one, 072 110 5584. Perhaps we can bring some of those up on the screen. Let's see. Simpiwe says, evening, Naledi. Unfortunately, South Africans find themselves having to talk about local businesses with people who flew 8,000 kilometers only to operate Spaza shops, which must be for South Africans. Shame on this government. Anonymous says, registration of Spaza shops is only going to benefit officials who will be doing operations on Spaza shops that have not registered. They will be taking bribes. That's good. Okay, we'll leave it there. But we can keep the WhatsApps coming in, 072 110 5584. Let's take a short break. When we come back, this really important discussion, non-governmental organizations reacting with dismay to the permanent halting of HIV funding by the US government. We'll get you more reactions shortly. Stay with us.